To furnish fire protection services to county residents by contracting with another entity must consistently with C do so under a contract with an incorporated volunteer fire department. I don't know how I'm misconstruing that or how there's a may in there. There's not. The may is if you desire to provide fire protection, which you have the option of saying we're not going to. Is that a good idea for the people of Grimes County? No. But if you're going to, you have one of two methods by which to do it. And so in this circumstance, the issue that I have is there's never been a problem with having one contract and having it signed by the association. The problem is it's got to be a contract that binds the volunteer fire departments and the county. So it's got to be signed by the volunteer fire departments. Can we have one document that's signed by the association, every department, and the county? Sure. What's the objection to that? I don't have a clue. This document itself, though, the problem with this, or one of the problems with this, it goes on to say there will be no third-party beneficiaries of this contract, which means this contract is only obligates those people that are in privity with it, which would be the association and the county. It goes on to say departments will be required to do X, Y, Z. Well, guess what? If all we have is a contract with the association, how can we ever enforce that a department do anything? We can't. How does a department ever have a right under this contract? They don't. That's the problem with having a third party in the middle, especially when you have a provision that says there's not going to be any third party beneficiaries. I don't understand what the objection is to one contract signed by all of those folks, but I'm telling you what the statute says. And to continue to tell me that I'm a liar is offensive.
Mr. Fultz, I didn't call you a liar?
Yes, sir, you did. Yes, sir.
Let me come over and look at this. I didn't understand something the last part you read. The last part.
This? Sure.
Yeah, the last part. I didn't understand. You read through it.
Start at the bottom of that page into the next.
Yeah, it's on the
I have a
last.
question.
I'm through your attorneys obviously put words in my mouth. I'm not sure of that.
Let's just drop it and get on to something else.
There's something you said. I didn't quite understand what you're saying.
Commissioner Court.
It has to be
Firefighter
signed by
Association.
it has to be signed by individual fire department.
John, are you talking about the resolution from 1979?
Right.
You'll be interested to know that the statute that we're talking about was passed in 1987.
That's no
So the
longer
statute
valid.
was passed after the resolution was adopted.
So it don't
No.
right in.
Have a problem with signing the current contract?
Well, I got a question, okay? I just need to make a comment in the middle of all this. So you're saying that if we adjust certain things, we sit down and adjust certain things in the contract, okay? We can have one contract that would bind, would put the fire department still working with the association, with the county, as long as each individual fire department signed the same contract with the association, with Commissioner's Court.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
is doable.
I've always said that.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to get all this lined out. So if we sit down and mark through this, what you're saying, the last part you're saying about, we can look through the parts, so what you're saying about the third party, show me where you're talking about that at, and we can go through that.
Okay.
And that's what I'd like
Because
to
when
do.
you read through it so fast, I can't grasp exactly where you're at and what we need to, I mean, would you mind coming over here to,
No, I don't mind, but if you want to look at 8.05, it says this contract is intended to inure only to the benefit of the association and the county. This contract is not intended to create, nor shall it be deemed or construed to create any rights of third parties.
okay.
Which, if we sign this contract as is, all the departments would be third parties.
Okay, I
So they have no
understand you
rights
do.
under this.
So that one, that 8.05 needs to be adjusted.
Well,
I mean, there's other things, but I'm trying to get somewhere to start with.
it may or may not, but if you add all the volunteer fire departments, it may not need to be. There may be no third parties that are benefited if you
Right.
include the
So
departments
you
in the
take the
contract.
third party out.
Well, I think you've got to add the departments to the contract.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I'm talking about verbiage, to sit down and try to, we need to mark this out, change this, go through it, and,
I don't disagree, and I would be happy to do that. We will be here a while if we're going to do that with this contract, because the devil is in the details. I would, as I originally represented, this is similar to the contract that we proposed, but there are numerous provisions in here that cause me some concern.
What,
So all we,
I wish you had given Mr. Fultz a copy before now, so he could have reviewed it and gone over the verbiage. because if we have to go through and it's really I mean, we can hit the high point.
Well, and I'll be happy to
And
hit
then-
the high points. The high points are, I didn't see in the body, but I do see and I haven't been through Exhibit A all the way, but Exhibit A is where you find that they're supposed to have insurance.
Correct?
But it's not in the body of the contract. And so basically the departments are being required to have insurance through this contract that's not signed with the departments. So obviously that's an issue about how do we hold the departments responsible under a contract that they're not bound to. So we can address that. Then there's a provision that says nothing of this contract may not be construed as one wherein the county is furnishing fire protection services.
Where you at?
7.02. I'm not sure what that means, but the statute says that the Commissioners Court can provide fire protection services through a contract with incorporated volunteer fire departments. So I'm not sure why we're turning around and saying contract may not be construed as one wherein the county is furnishing fire protection services. Are we not providing fire protection
Yes,
services?
I don't. That's what I'm saying, these things,
Okay.
the details.
All right, and then there's the term remuneration is used several times, and it says and I assume that's something that was gained from the attorney, and I may be incorrect, but typically, or our contract says, none of the monies exchanged or none of the monies paid by the counties will be used for salaries. Remuneration to me typically means we're paying for something, and I think we're paying for something. I think the county's paying for something. So when it says the contract is not one for remuneration, I think what's intended is it's not for salary. But to be honest with you, I'd feel more comfortable if we got the definition of remuneration out and looked at it and make sure we all agree on what it is.
Yeah, it has something to do with the point of paying for services.
Okay. The indemnification, I'll say the indemnification looks fine. That provision apparently has been one of contention, and before it looks fine. I'll go back to, if I can, to 1.01. Texas Local Government Code provides Commissioners Court may contract, and I put in there with volunteer fire departments because that's exactly what the AG opinion says, for fire, and the statute says fire protection. And y'all have firefighting services. I don't know that there's a distinction, but if we're going to cite the government code, I'd like to use the government code or local government code's language. The provision, Commissioners, they have a provision that, as it stands now, that the county will be obligated to pay $160,000 to the association on the first day of this contract. That's fine. I think that's what's been agreed to, is that it'll be paid. I just hate to say we're going to pay it to the association. I mean, the contract is supposed to be with the departments. What if someone at the association embezzles the money and runs off with the money? Who have we paid? We were supposed to have a contract with the volunteer fire departments. We paid the association, the money's gone. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but why would we be paying a third party? It doesn't make sense to
But
me.
that is a question I would like to ask. Why is it that y'all insist that everything have to go through the association when each fire department has their own, it goes to each fire department.
Right.
Why do y'all want it for distribution?
Well, that was just put in there because of this actually came from other fire departments that do it through association. They pay the association pays out to the other entities of the association. Whole main reason we want everybody, and not the monies right now, but we like to keep everything going under the association because it keeps everybody focused, we keep with everybody's trainings, everybody's NIMS, trying to keep everybody working as a team to overall do the county the best we can do.
I agree that y'all need to have requirements of fire departments that belong to your association. I believe that. I think it's a very positive thing that y'all are so, I guess, devoted to coming together as a unit. And that can still be with your training. It's just the contracts themselves have to be with each fire department. And I guess I have to agree, I don't understand why each fire department would object to their signing an individual contract if they all say the very same thing.
But just like I was saying with John, if we can, each fire department can sign it, as the association sign it, as we sign it as a group, as a whole, it's association signs it, they agree to it, each individual volunteer fire department signs it and agrees to it. We all agree to it under one contract. Not have 8 contracts outside the association, so something else changes, well, this one veers off, and it's different from this one. I think keeping everybody the same, everybody on the same page under association where there's some kind of oversight, I think it would keep everybody more focused.
One question I have, Judge, is that if we pay the association and you disperse the funds, I think we've all agreed that funds that the county pays the departments, that's the only money that I think we should have a right to audit. But if we don't pay the departments, if we pay the association and you disperse the funds, then the only people that we really have the right to audit is the association. Am I right in that?
That's where
auditor?
it went to that exhibit, that's where it added to that exhibit talking about.
Okay, because, I mean, yeah, it does say each department shall submit a record for all calls, but then we would reimburse the association and you would turn around and reimburse the departments?
That was just what came from association working with the department.
I would just think that would create a lot more paperwork for the association.
It will.
And I'd like to ask any of the departments, the heads that are here, do the department heads have a problem with every of the 7 volunteer fire departments getting the exact same contract? And we contracting with the departments along with the association? And I don't know if that construes that third party or not, but I think if we have a cooperation of the department, of the association, but our contracts are actually with the departments. And then we that's okay. That we reimburse the departments, and that way we don't have any business dealing with the association's funds. We don't know what you do, and it keeps you out of the loop. I think it would streamline things, I would think.
But to keep, I think we just need to keep a volunteer fire department in Grimes County needs to remain a member of the Grimes County Association.
I'm 100%.
If you're not in the association, you're not a valid fire
We
department.
don't need any renegade people out there.
That's what worries me.
But that is the verbiage that has always been. I mean, that's always been, you have to be a authorized fire department, you have to be a member of the association. And we wouldn't make a contract with somebody that was not an authorized
John,
fire
could
department.
each fire chief of each city or county, precinct, whatever, sign that one contract?
Or I think would it be a board of directors of each volunteer
It'd
fire
probably
department?
the board member.
Okay, whatever.
Of each.
Right.
Whoever they assign, if they assign the chief, or
Well,
authorize the chief to sign.
It goes right at the heart of the statute that says it has to be an incorporated volunteer fire department. They have to be incorporated so that they have some entity that controls what they do, not just a rogue group of folks that say, we're a new fire department. So, yes, it would have to be members of the board that are authorized.
I have a question about that, because I checked something when I read this, that it says that we contract with the volunteer fire departments to assist, or to, I guess, firefighting services in the unincorporated areas of the county. Anderson, if you get a house fire in the city limits of Anderson, you still go to that, BDIs, even though those are incorporated areas. I mean, we still, we want you to fight those fires in the incorporated areas, but I'm just curious why that terminology.
Local government,
That's a-
local agreement with the
Yeah,
city.
y'all have an interlocal
Okay.
agreement?
No, you're right, Commissioner. It says, Commissioners Court of a county may contract with an incorporated volunteer fire department that's located within the county to provide fire protection, that's the term, fire protection to an area of the county that's located outside the municipalities of the county. So this contract has to do with areas outside municipalities.
That would have to be an interlocal between the incorporated area.
But I'm
and the
saying
fire
if they make a call inside the city limits of Anderson, then we still should reimburse, I think we should still reimburse them for that, right? Or with the city of Anderson.
Y'all do reimburse.
We all-
Yeah, we do.
we all
But
get reimbursed.
According to
But
this,
the-
it
right,
says
but
outside
the-
municipalities.
Right.
So-
We have an agreement with the municipalities,
Yeah,
all the
local
municipalities
agreement, yeah.
that stand currently, that law enforcement and fire protection are covered
Mhm.
under the county.
And you can do an interlocal. That's essentially what I'm talking about.
The other question I had is that under indemnification, I've talked to several different insurance agencies about this, and I've got different opinions from just about each one. Some say that where we ask you to list the county as a additionally insured on your policy, each department has a general liability policy. Most of them say there is no charge to add us. Some say it's $100, some say $250. my personal feeling is that if your insurance agency, I'm just looking at Herschel, because if Anderson Volunteer Fire Department goes to their insurance agency and says, you know, we have to have Grimes County as an additionally insured, if they charge you $100 or $250, I think the county ought to reimburse the department for any charge that there is. If there's no charge, obviously, you know, we don't want to be billed for it, but if the departments incur a charge, I think that we ought to reimburse you. That shouldn't come out of money that we're already giving.
Yeah, well, we had stated that last time. I don't know whether y'all have the one insurance company that y'all all use.
All the fire departments use VFIS. That's the fire department's insurance company out of Austin.
And
Have you
association,
checked
you get
on that?
discount.
Do they have?
We don't
that?
do it as an association. Each individual department went to them way back whenever they started and have been through VFIS. It never went through the association to get a larger discount. Or to try to get breaks for the fire departments if all fire departments use the same entities.
Have y'all checked on the cost to add the county to the policy?
I have sent it off to VFIS. I have not
You
received
haven't
them back yet.
received a response yet?
No, ma'am.
Krieger has spoken to this, but if you look at paragraph 4.01, it says, and we have to deal with how the association, the department does whatever, or the departments, what parties or what people or entities are parties to this agreement, but it says the association agrees to require each of its members to keep records pertaining to the expenditure of all funds paid by the county which are used by the department. I just remind you that if we're signing a deal, county and the association, and there are no rights in third parties or no rights about third parties, we would have no opportunity to enforce that a department gave the report to the association. Go on to say, each member department shall submit, and I'll use this phrase because that's what it says, an annual report. Doesn't say what that is. Through the association to be filed with the county auditor's office, and it says I know it means regarding expenditures of county funds. The problem with that is one department will give you a napkin, another department will give you a 10-page report. The question is, what can you enforce? This says an annual report. You're left with whatever they call an annual report. So that worries me. It's not the same as an audit.
I'd say, Ms. Nichols, what other departments are you allowed for them just to submit their own report, and you accept that, or do you have to do an audit?
No, we prefer and are required really to have the checks and balances, you know, check the receipts against the checks and so forth to make sure that it is legitimate.
So you would have to, they would have to submit to an audit from the auditor's department, is that what you're saying?
And, I mean, all we're asking is, you know, do a bank reconciliation every month, keep your records. If somebody pays for something and the fire department reimburses them, it's very important to keep the records on that, okay?
Do you get paid to do your job?
Yes, I do.
Do we get paid to do ours?
We want to keep.
Judge, I'll just be a distraction, but one of the primary reasons is the Constitution of the state of Texas says what I'm about to tell you, and that is any payment that the county makes must serve a public purpose and must be accompanied by controls sufficient to ensure that the public purpose is accomplished. That's what we're talking about. So I understand not wanting to have to put in extra time to say, or effort, I guess is the point, of saying, here are our books, we're an open store, especially when folks feel like they've been accused when there's nothing related to their department. And I understand that. But you guys know that from that side of the bench, you have an obligation to everyone else in the county who is not here tonight to say, where are these dollars going? And to say, we want to put in sufficient controls so that we can monitor those dollars to be sure that they're being spent on a public purpose, I think is obviously legitimate.
I think the audit part calmed down once it was just the audit on what the county funds were, because a lot of it got into all the other stuff that was going on, the donations and stuff, that I think that caused a lot of it, being that everybody felt there was an attack since they didn't do anything wrong, but yet they were attacked. I think the audit thing is calmed down to per se, you know, but it's just getting everything on the verbiage of where everybody can work with it together in a contract. The verbiage is a hard thing. One person reads it one way, one person reads it another. And I know there's nothing you, John, it's just people read things different and don't understand something like someone else would understand it. You have the legal side of it, most of us don't. So it's hard for everybody to understand the verbiage.
And I understand that, and I guess the concern that I've developed here is that somehow this has been seen a document that's been shoved down your throats. And this was a shot at a contract that's required by law. This was patterned off a contract that's existed since the 90s from Shiro. I used some language that came from Washington County. There was never an intent to pull something over or force something down the throats of the departments that was inappropriate or overwhelming or overburdensome. And I understand that it may have been taken that way. And I'm more than happy for the Commissioners Court to turn to your draft and use that as the model to work from. And maybe that's where we go. But we have to, obviously, as we've talked about, have to deal with the association being the party. I mean, just another suggestion, another problem, I guess, is that Exhibit A that you talked about, departmental contract requirements. And you go down the list. The department will be a member of this. The department will participate in this. The fire chief shall submit this. The department shall hold a minimum of 2 drills. How can the county enforce something against the department when the department's not a party?
Yeah, I understand that part of it. Okay, let's say with all the other verbiages, let's say we get the verbiages lined out. Okay, if you have all the departments listed in here, have the departments sign, whomever the representative is by their board, to sign it with the association, is that doable?
Oh, yeah, sure.
That's what we need to come up with, something that's doable to work with the association, all the volunteer fire departments, and the county, that's a verbiage that everybody understands, so there's not no he says, she said, and I don't understand.
And I also think that gives each department the opportunity to say, we don't feel comfortable with it, or and that way we have a contract with each department that if, for instance, we have a problem somewhere, we can handle it with that particular department without bringing everybody involved in it, like we were talking about in the audit situation. We got a problem with one department, we've got a contract with that department. It doesn't affect your contract because maybe we don't have a problem with that department. So I think
That's where you get that.
Well, I understand that, but I think the concern is all the departments want to be treated equally.
And
We're giving out more money over here, and I
Right.
think that's probably the biggest concern.
So one document or 7 documents that all read the same with the exception of they have a different department in there, and we contract with each department. Is that what you're asking, or is that where we're trying to get to?
That's where I'm trying to get to, and that's where I had hoped my original draft was, and I'll work from their draft.
You're doing away with the fire
That
association.
the monies to be provided for fire protection would be distributed equally to each fire department? I mean, wouldn't that say the same, wouldn't that mean the same thing? If it is distributed equally, and that's part of what we had, I think.
I don't think that was stated in any of them.
Okay, that it would be distributed equally, but, because it's always been distributed equally.
Well, you're talking about the flat money, you're not talking about the per run, that wouldn't be
No,
the
I'm
same.
talking
No,
about
that's
the flat,
all
I'm talking about the fixed
big.
rate,
The fixed rate only, yes, not the
It would
run
be
rate.
distributed equally. The way that with it's the $160,000, y'all say 20,000 to each department, but I think that if we say distributed equally to each department who's signed the contract, that way, anybody that signed on that contract, it will get the same amount.
I would just like to make a couple of comments. When we do the audit, when y'all turn in your run cost, we call and get a run sheet or
Run number.
a printout from the sheriff's office to see if you were dispatched. And we check those. That's one of the ways that we check to make sure that, somebody's not putting in a few extra runs here and there to gain money for their fire department. And another thing is, anytime any entity that receives public funds, they are required to keep records. And so it's, you know, this whole thing blew up, and it should have never blown up because we've been doing audits for several years on fire departments. And, you know, when the auditor's office realized that there was a problem in Iola, we backed up and let the sheriff's department take over because that's what needed to be done. We have no reason to be out to get anyone. All we're doing is just trying to make sure that the funds are spent for what they're given.
I don't think that's a problem with the fire departments, with you, the funds y'all give us,
Right.
showing where they go.
And that's why I have suggested to every fire department that they have a separate checking account for county money.
When you're saying that separate, you're talking about the flat rate plus the run call money.
And they can put
All
all
that
that
is
in one.
one.
Yeah,
Okay.
and whatever they get for their fundraisers and stuff, that needs to be in another account if they don't want us to audit it. But if they mix it in with the county money,
And it's audited.
then we have to audit it because we have to find out where the money went and was the county money, you know, spent properly or not.
We have one concern then on 302, 3.02, number 1. The record for the total mileage would be submitted by the departments, but it would have to be also verified by dispatch.
Yes.
We'd have to put that in.
Well, it
And it's
also says
always-
for each apparatus, we want to be sure we know what that means, and
Yeah.
somebody could claim it's a truck or
There's gonna
a
have to be
vehicle.
clarity on that number 1 for the verification and then
And that's the problem, is I don't want them to get the sense that I'm picking it apart. I just see it with different eyes, as saying, here's some spots where I could see someone who wanted to cause an issue on a particular item. Not that anybody in this room would do that, but somebody that said, all I gotta do is an annual report, here's your napkin. That's why I couldn't let that stay the way it is. And so if we get tinkering with this, which is fine, I just don't want the sense that somehow I'm trying to be offensive or oppressive or whatever. I thought this little 4-page deal was one of the easiest contracts I'd ever seen. I still do. And I could read through here and I'd ask the question of what is it that we're mad about? I still don't get it. I still don't get it.
Exactly.
is there any way, because there's really not gonna be a way tonight to go through each point that he can,
Well, I don't mind going through it, redline it and send it to Joan or whatever we need to do. I don't mind doing that. But obviously, it can't happen tonight. And the major overhaul that has to happen here is we have to agree that this is binding the departments in the county, not the association in the county. The association can sign it, and I'm fine with that, and it'll bind them. But the statute says, and really I think the county wants to have a contract with the volunteer fire departments. There's a statute that says clearly, the volunteer fire departments act as the agent of the county. It seems to me it shouldn't be taken as offensive to say, let's have a contract with this department, with these departments that are going to act as an agent of the county. So it seems to me we've got to make that overhaul. Once we do this, some of these other things may be fairly minor. The numbers as far as the dollars are the same. The indemnity seems to be the same. The record keeping, the term is used annual report, and we used annual report, but we also said then open to an audit, and I'm hearing that's not an issue. One of the things that I noticed that jumps out at me, they do say insurance, and I'm hearing the court say, I haven't heard the court vote on the idea of paying for the cost of either insurance or additional insured. Because one would be pay them back the cost of insurance. One would be pay them back the cost to name us as an additional insured, which is not the same cost. There's additional cost for that additional insured. But their Exhibit A does not say the amount of insurance they will have. It says that the fire department shall provide emergency vehicle insurance coverage for each apparatus and vehicle owned and operated. Then it says fire department shall provide personal injury insurance for all members. It doesn't say to what level. So that would be a concern of mine.
So basically, if we took the 500 per occurrence, 1 million aggregate, 1,000, 300,000, put that in there as that is a part of it, which that's when I did my verification with insurance on the fire departments, that's not the issue. Okay, but now naming y'all, I have not got a reply back from the insurance company stating if there is a cost and what it would be.
Well, why don't we, as I just suggest this, when you get that done,
Mhm.
and when we, and if Mr. Ford will go through and mark everything that is a concern that he can make notes and say, we'll have to change this verbiage or do this.
Mhm.
Then when we accept the contracts, at that same time, then we'll be having on the agenda to approve paying whatever there would be to add the county.
The additional cost to add the,
And we could just accept the contracts and vote to pay that payment to have the county added to the insurance policy. And if you can accept that, have Mr. Fultz review what we've got, because he says it's basically a good contract, there's just some things that won't work. Send you his notes, y'all go over it, discuss it. I really, I hate because y'all only meet, once a month, that there's so much delay. If you could sometime maybe just call a special meeting, I'd like to hurry up and get this.
and we need to get it done before the end of December. That's
Well,
what we need to do.
we have
I hope
to,
we try to get it done, because I think normally we make your payment, wouldn't it be, we would have to approve it for the next meeting, wouldn't we? Jess?
When's the next commissioner court?
we have it on the 11th.
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
That's next Tuesday, but we have one also on the 26th.
26.
And so, I don't think that we're gonna be able to do it on Tuesday because my agenda's got to go out tomorrow.
It goes out tomorrow, but could we put it on there, and if they don't have the information,
You need to drop it.
then we could just not take action on it?
That would be, we could table it.
That'd be safer that way.
Alright.
So if we can get it together, I'd like to see us get the departments their money at least as quick as we can.
I will get my notes to Joan by Friday.
I'll get with you on the verbiage for the agenda to put it on there for next Tuesday, just in case we do get. Would you have to have a meeting though to have the fire departments approve, or are you authorized to make those
The fire departments would
adjustments?
have to look over it.
Yeah, but they're gonna have to sign it, but each individual fire department's gonna have to sign it anyway, so.
Right.
I
If we
know.
just get it proposed to get that, make that happen for you, and then, because I'm
But
sure
you-
they have to have their own meetings.
I know, but if we're gonna approve a contract, we won't have time to approve it by Tuesday. I mean, if you've got to contact everybody, so why don't we just set it for the 26th? And that way you'll have plenty of time, you'll probably hear from the insurance company.
Mhm.
We can know that we can do it, because it's unrealistic to think y'all could do it by Tuesday. It's already Wednesday.
I would think they can call an emergency meeting and get everybody
Right.
there.
So the thing is, we can get it as far as the people
Always put
coming
it
to
on
the
next year.
association, but if it has to go with each individual contract with each individual fire station, that fire station's board's gonna have to approve it. They sign it. It can't be, the association, all the board of directors sit around here, we work on it, we work with the chiefs and everything, that's fine. We come up with what we think is right, but each individual fire station, their board is gonna have to say, okay, yes, this fire station can sign this. It can't be one Grimes County Firefighters Association meeting. Each fire station will have to have their own board meeting to agree on a contract with that station and the county.
But if we have it by the 26th, wouldn't that give you time for y'all to get your emergency meetings all organized?
I would think by the
All right.
26th.
By the 26th, we'll put it, I'll get with Mr. Fultz and get the verbiage. We'll get it on the 26th. And so please encourage everyone to.
Day after Christmas, we actually moved that meeting to Wednesday, right?
We're having that on the 26th. So, if y'all could do that, I know it's the holidays, and I know it's a lot to ask, but, we need this by the 26th.
And you think, John, you think you have the red line to me by AM Friday?
Yeah, because the game's in the PM.
We have to leave early to go there. There's so many seats.
No, I'm just kidding with you. I will get it to you as soon as I can Friday.
I can send you a word on it tonight.
Yeah, send it to me. And I'm gonna use yours, and I may go overboard by putting some of my stuff in there, but here's the deal: is she and I are being left to try to iron this out with her draft. I don't know if you all want to see it on Tuesday or not, and comment on it regardless of whether we have it finalized.
Well,
But ultimately, saying, Fulcher, take it and run with it, and if it's not something that you want, then obviously you need an opportunity to comment on it before they have approval of all of their folks.
But I think it's the logistics of it. I don't think that the commissioners have.
We can look at it on Tuesday and approve it, but they maybe can't, so.
I know, but-
I don't know why
No, we
we
can't,
couldn't.
there's no way I can get y'all,
So
all
I'm
the
saying,
fire
but
departments.
if he has it drawn up, he can present it to the court, we can put it as an agenda item that we'll accept it, and then you can take it to your each individual department, and then it's up to them to accept it. Because essentially it's 7 different entities,
Eight.
8 different entities agreeing to a contract, and if one of them decides they don't want to participate, well then, we still have a contract with the rest of them. So, I think as a commissioner's court, I think we could agree upon it on Tuesday to enter into it, and it'd be up to you. You know, it's kind of like when you buy a house, you know, I sign my part and I send it to you and you sign it, well then the deal's done, so.
Well,
Right,
it's the same thing we did before. You all approved
Yeah,
this
we
form,
approved it already.
sent it out, and that's how we got here. Now, let's hope that doesn't happen again,
Right.
but
But
that's
see,
what we're
if I-
talking about.
If I seen this, you redline it, send it back to me, and just between the red lines between you and I, then it has to go out to the departments, well, wait a minute, no, that ain't gonna work, or that's gonna work. So that's what's gonna take the time.
Right, but I'm saying, can you wait until Tuesday so they can approve it? Then you don't have to worry about you're running out there and you got 40 people that say yes. We come in here on the 26th and somebody has a problem with it. Let's get approved on Tuesday, and then you run it through all the folks that it's got to go through.
Right. See, I mean, I know that's
Y'all have it
where,
worked out.
I know that's where the problem started, is that we approved the contract that y'all didn't approve.
Right.
And I know it's like the carts before the horse. I know that it seems like an exercise of futility.
For the commissioners.
But
to
if
approve it.
that's,
Yeah.
if that's necessary that we approve a contract before we submit it for approval, then I suggest that we,
You just be approving the form is what
Yeah.
you'll be doing. Now, if it
Yeah.
comes back and there's some minor change, you still have the opportunity to approve the contract that they present back. I'm not saying you don't, but I'm just saying, rather than having them be out there, because they have more people to contact.
Yeah.
Might as well have at least one side already approve of it, and it should be the side with the smaller number of people.
well, I knew that, but I just wanted to make it, because it sounded the way it was said, just a little bit like the way it was before, and so we wanted to make sure.
I just need one other verification. 3.02, number 1, it's dealing with the record of the calls for service. That part has been verified by the GCSO, Communications Center, whatever the auditor's office. Now, they don't have any way to verify total mileage.
They got a good deal.
You know, so,
Right.
the judge made a comment a while ago about having them verify the mileage. The only way they can do that is if we drove out there.
Yeah, but the problem is verifying the mileage is, okay, let's say we have a structure fire. Okay, the tanker goes there, but they might go back and forth filling up that tanker truck 20 times.
Right,
So,
just like we have had to do.
right, so you get all that mileage, you're running like from where we were, Shower Road to Nebraska back and forth, filling up water. So those kind of instances does add up on the mileage.
And I think in that situation, if we could just have, like in the, out in the side, you know, the tanker had to make X number, you know. I mean, I was in Shiro, I watched
Mhm.
2 tankers go back and forth, you know, and even put up the pool so that they would be able to dump as they came, you know.
Mhm.
And I know that's happened on more than that one occasion. But, you know, if we can just have a little, because that doesn't happen all the time, but if we can just have a little notation, be advised, the tanker had to run for extra water. You know, unfortunately, we don't have 7 tankers that we can line up at some point.
Yes, it's on a lot of runs.
That's on our run sheet.
We have them at the station, so if there's a question of tanker running, it shows how many times, which unit number ran, and how many miles it ran.
Right.
Judge and Commissioners, could I ask a couple of questions so that I won't have to ask this on Tuesday? There are 2 provisions in here. This again is just because of my cursory review, but the first is the $160,000 is to be paid upon the execution essentially of the contract. Is that okay? Is that what the court wants to do? Okay, all right. Because there was some issue about when the request was going to be made. This takes out any request that's made by the volunteer fire departments. As soon as this is signed, the money is paid.
And will that verbiage say that obviously we're dealing with each individual department, so
Yeah.
as the department gets their contract back in, they get their check
Okay, but we don't have
Well-
to submit the invoice that we've always submitted to the treasurer's office?
Yeah.
Requesting that $20,000.
Sure.
We have to give an invoice.
As soon as that comes, you can put that with the contract and get your.
Okay, well, I'm gonna add that to 3.01, which right now says, on or about the first day of the term of the contract, the county shall pay $160,000 to the association. So, we're obviously, we're changing the association, but it shall pay, but only upon presentation of the invoice, right?
I would feel a little more comfortable if we paid the individual fire department.
Yeah, he's gonna change
Yeah.
that, but okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then, what was I gonna say, Janice? On the contracts, if one fire department decides not to sign the contract, then that's gonna change what everybody else will see. So, we need to kind of have a deadline for the contracts to be in, so that we.
Why would it change what they get?
Well, if only 6 of them sign and 2 of them don't, then the $160,000 would be divided between the 6 instead of between the 8.
But-
No, we're gonna change it to
20,000.
20,000.
No, it's 20,000 each.
Yeah.
We're gonna change it to
process.
20,000.
But they have to sign the contract, and they have to be a member association in order to get the 20,000.
Yeah. It's,
Well, and see,
20,000 each
I'm
process.
glad you said that, because that's, I think, how this got started was, it was the belief that the Commissioners Court was saying, you have to sign the contract to get paid. And it was really a statement of fact, as you just said it, and that is, we want to do a contract that applies across the board. What if there's one rogue entity or two that say, we don't want to do it? Well, we don't, the court doesn't know how to deal with that, other than to say, you need to sign the contract that's in front of you or you won't get paid. And it's not a threat, it's not meant to be ugly, it's not meant to be offensive, we're right back here again. If we change with one contract with one fire department, then every other fire department goes nuts and says, hey, no, we want to all have the same one. So I want to be sure that it's understood, this is kind of how we got there. It wasn't take it or leave it, it's down your throat. It wasn't intended to be, it certainly wasn't from me, that you sign it or you're not getting paid. It's just a matter of fact. And if you don't sign it the way that, and I'm hoping that you guys get to have the fight with the volunteer fire departments now about how the form's going to be.
The thing that is, we've said, if you do not remain a member of the Grimes County Firefighter Association, then you're not a legit fire department in the county. Because if we don't do that, then y'all have everybody pumping up the fire department, everybody's gonna want $20,000.
I agree.
They might not have to have liability, they might not have training, they might not have any thought of fire training whatsoever, and they're expecting $20,000.
No, but that's why it does read in that government code or in it says they have to be a qualified. And
It
that's
says
why
incorporated, whatever that is.
Incorporated. That's why I had to get y'all to submit all of your incorporation letters, your your board stuff. I had to make sure that everybody was. I was fine there, and I have to apologize, if there was a lack of communication. When it was a very tense time when we discovered this government code. We definitely wanted to be, that everyone to do it right. We wanted it to be according to the law, because that is what we're about.
I think we owe it to the citizens to do it right, and the departments owe it to the people that are making those donations and supporting the fire departments, if they want to see the departments are run the same way. So I think it's a two-way street.
And it was based upon, Judge, primarily the discovery of the fact
Yeah.
that contracts didn't exist.
That's right. And
Which
then
was
when
brought
he told-
about by the circumstance in the North End.
And
That's where that began.
And that's where it began, when he told me, hey, we've got this, I found this local government code, it's got AG opinion, we've got to do it. And that's when it began to fall apart. There was a misunderstanding. And I'm glad we're here. I'm glad that we're going to get this resolved and go forward. And
Can I raise my last, I'll try to make it my last issue. 8.03, this would be a matter for negotiation and whether or not the parties wanted to have the possibility of an extension. This contract shall be renegotiated annually. Well, you can't make a contract that forces you to agree to something later. We'll agree later, if it just says we'll agree later. I mean, if we had, we'll agree later to X, or we'll agree later to, whatever it may be, $100. But this contract shall be renegotiated annually. So it's contracting that you will renegotiate. It doesn't say what you will renegotiate, but it says you will. during the county budget cycle unless both parties agree to an extension of this contract, with said extension to be for not more than a total of 2 years in duration beyond the end of the original contract. I don't know how you want to handle that, if you want to have any extensions, if you want to say every contract is a 1-year deal, because that's what mine originally said, is every contract was a 1-year deal and you'd address it every year. Doesn't matter to me, and I don't mind tinkering with that language, but this is saying you're going to renegotiate unless there's an agreement to have an extension. The problem with that, certainly if you have different contracts for different departments, we don't want to have different rules for different departments on that.
I think
We'll
it's
have
probably
to-
a yearly
We'll have to,
contract.
Okay.
because I will tell you, I did research everything very seriously. In fact, I talked with Judge Peters at a meeting the other day, and I asked him how they did it. And that's what they do. Their district, they have ESDs each district, and then they give, as we do on the fixed cost, so much to each fire department for service. And so then that way you know what to budget for, you know how much you would be getting in because of the tax rate that you established. I hate to think that it would have to change, but our budget's set on the ad valorem tax.
Exactly, so
And
you don't know what it's gonna
if we
be.
have something that, and the economy declines as it did about, what was it, maybe 4 years ago? When we had to cut back and we had a freeze on everything because we lost so much revenue, because it's 51% of our ad valorem tax is tied to industrial tax. We can't say that we would be able to give the set amount every time. And so that's where I don't want it to become an issue of us fighting over money that may or may not be there because we got it the last time. And that's why they said that most fire departments, because of the expense, because of the cost that's involved, are going to the ESDs. And so I just like to ask y'all to investigate it, see if it would be an option that you would like to consider. I don't, this has been very heart-wrenching for me, for us to go through this, because I know that y'all have to know that you're very special. I worked with you too closely last year. I have nothing except admiration for you. But I know it takes money, but you have to understand there's a budget that we have to do. We have to distribute it. The money is there, and we try to do the best that we can. So just consider it as an option. Just consider it something you're going to look into, because then that way you are in control, and you do know what your budget would be because you'll be having the ESD. I think I always should be able to give you a lot of insight on how it helps them. Because I don't know, I just think it's going to be a way of the future. Because as we grow, as we get more people, there's going to be more districts that are going to need more money. They have more